Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Hubbard appeals. Also, the V-Team takes a look at the Porch Creek Indians' big gamble. And ethics reform is coming.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Like the plague, baby. Like the plague. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Hey, Jonathan.
Happy
Hello.
pollen season.
Why are you on the left?
I'm not sure. I should be on the right.
That's the right if they're looking.
Listen, I'm like the redheaded stepchild. I just come in when y'all need me.
But you're always behind the scenes.
That's right.
Okay, so Senator McClendon introduced a clean lottery bill, and what that means, a clean lottery bill means a bill that handles only one subject. Senate President Pro Tem Del Marsh is a co-sponsor on the bill, but then a week or two ago, he came in and said we had problems with the bill and that he had problems with where the money was going. McClendon's bill splits the money between Education Trust Fund and the General Fund. He said he had problems with it. He wanted it all to go to the general fund. Well, a couple of days later, he then went on a radio show and said he had a problem with the video lottery terminals. Susan, I think Marsh knew what the bill was. He had sponsored a very similar bill in 2015. Mm-hmm. Why do you think the good senator from Anniston has changed his mind?
Because Doug Jones' position in the Senate looks really good. And if he can get some PCI money, make them happy with killing this bill, he gets a shot at the Senate run.
Oh, wow.
So, Jonathan, this is a very simple bill. It allows the people to vote on a lottery. A lottery. I mean, isn't it time that we trust the voters of Alabama?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, if you poll Republicans, a vast majority of Republicans are for a state lottery. And you've got your ultra-right Republicans who are not for a state lottery. But if you can have a clean bill that says this is all that we do, this is it, it will bring a lot of revenue to our state. And I mean, and many Republicans, fiscally conservative Republicans, know that we need the revenue and it's leaving our state every time there's a big lottery.
I mean, Chip, the fact that Marsh can do great harm to this bill because he is the head of the Senate, or he can just let it go through as written. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what he's going to do because we don't know what his motivation is.
Yeah, we also don't know when he's going to flip-flop again.
I think they've taken to put timestamps on his last opinion now.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a diss. I mean, we ran his column this week from what year was it,
2015.
That basically said, I want a bill just like what Senator McClendon has proposed, and now he's opposing it, even though he's a co-sponsor on the bill. Yeah. So, I mean, none of this really makes sense. It makes sense when you consider all the money that's flowing different places, and you consider what he might want, what his future ambitions might be, and whether or not he wants to replace state senator with U.S. senator.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all these things are considerations. The fight seems to be over video lottery terminals. Yeah. But like you said, I mean, this is a clean bill. It doesn't have to do with bingo. It doesn't have to do with all these other things that could be merged into one bill. I mean, what this deals with is a lottery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jonathan, he hit the nail on the head. Money. The Porch Creek wants to protect its monopoly, and they are so eager to protect it that in the 2018 election cycle, they gave $1.4 million to mostly Republican House and Senate candidates.
That's right. And I think they do that to basically hedge their bets and hope that we will not bring a lottery bill up for a vote. The Porch Creek have made a lot of money over the years. And, you know, we had talked about some of the numbers with that. And it's incredible that the state hasn't gotten any revenue off that. You know, and for them wanting to stop this, it should tell you something that they're worried about what's going to happen. But I don't think it really affects them because, you know, if you have the virtual lottery terminals, all they have to do is switch to that, and they can still run the same show that they're doing.
And since these are at racetracks, they do have the mobile racetrack. You know, so that's not going to hurt them there either.
Well, and to get it a little bit clearer on that, we got about 2.5 minutes left. The lottery consists of the paper lottery, the scratch-offs that you can buy at the convenience stores, and an iLottery, which you can play on your phone with certain qualifications, and video lottery terminals. Now, all video lottery terminals are terminals that look all fancy, but all they do is take a state-issued card, lottery card, and electronically scratch it off, and then that card's retired. Now, Chip, as we were talking before, this is only permitted at the 4 racetracks. The one in Jefferson County, the one in Macon County, the one in Greene County, and the one in Mobile County. And the reason they're letting them do it there is because they already have gambling.
They already have gambling there. I mean, you can bet on dogs and horses and things running around a racetrack. How is that different than having a video lottery terminal? It's a lot different because a video lottery terminal is just a lottery. All you're doing, like you said, is pulling a card and playing that card. It's the same thing if you go to Georgia and you buy a scratch off. You can go up to a machine and scan the barcode and it'll tell you if you won. I mean, all of that is just combined into one machine in this kind of situation. They wouldn't be at gas stations per se, but they would be at these places that already have legalized gambling per state law.
So it's just like it's just like a virtual lottery. I mean, you scan, boom, you see if you've won, you know, and some of the machines look like slot machines from what I'm understanding, but it's basically uses the lottery and the scratch off numbers.
And you know what?
Fancy.
And I got to get this in. This has been legal in the state of Alabama in those 4 counties since 1985.
And so this argument that people didn't know what they were voting for is just blatantly a lie. Because this bill does away with bingo, except charity bingo. And what it does is it lets places that have had parimutuel gaming, which is a class 3 game, if I'm right. It is wagering money, hard money on a bet. And it allows them to have it because they have the infrastructure. They have the license. They have all the stuff you need.
And a constitutional amendment for parimutuel betting.
Right. The people in Jefferson, Greene, Macon, and Mobile County knew exactly what they were voting for to allow gambling.
And I mean, the reality is that despite all these big Mega Millions jackpots that you're seeing, the growth in lotteries is not in playing the paper tickets.
No,
the growth in lotteries is in scratch-offs. It's in the app on your phone. It's in playing on these video terminals. It's not in you go and you pick numbers and play on a sheet of paper. That's not what people are spending money on, especially young people.
2 things Republicans are worried about. They're worried about, is the money going to go to where it needs to go, and is our state going to have a bunch of bingo halls or virtual terminals all around the state? And that's the concern. That's the biggest concern Republicans have.
And 2 things to that. There is a mechanism here where it watches every dime, and there is another mechanism that says outside of the 4 tracks, which already have gambling, it's illegal. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and opinion.
What a great opportunity for your success. Adding 500,000 highly skilled employees to our workforce by 2025 is how we stay ahead in Alabama. Our economy is stronger than it's been in years, and a skilled workforce is more important than ever. Things move fast, so choose your path. Your success is waiting, plus a great future for Alabama. Success Plus. Go for it.
The Energy Institute of Alabama promotes reliable, affordable, and clean energy to help grow our economy, create high-paying jobs, and build public support for Alabama's energy industry. The Energy Institute of Alabama is the best source of energy industry information and how it affects households across the state. from convenient energy production to alternative fuels to solar power and beyond.
What are you doing today, babe?
I thought I'd head down to the lake with the guys, do a little fishing. Of course, none of us will be wearing our seatbelts. I'll lose control of the truck, wrap it around a tree, and kill us all.
Okay.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Chip, Josh Moon did a report this past week that is at once disturbing and very weird and a bit confusing. And it starts with the Lead Academy here in Montgomery, the charter school that was first denied approval by the board that does the approving process. They didn't like that, so they went to the Supreme Court, the Alabama Supreme Court, found a reason to approve the charter school anyway, even though they contradict themselves within their own ruling. Nothing unusual there. But what is unusual is that the people who started Lead Academy know nothing about running charter school. So they hired a group out of Texas to run the schools for them. Can you give us a little breakdown about who this group is and who what Muslim cleric they kind of represent?
So like you said, I mean, the people who were trying to get Lead Academy started had no idea what they were doing. They had no experience in charter schools. They were trying to set this thing up. So they decide that they need, after it was rejected initially and eventually got approved, they didn't have, any idea what they were doing. They decided to go and find somebody else to help them along. So they get a charter management organization, basically somebody who, like a corporation that will come in and help you run your charter schools. Well, it turns out they picked one that's connected to a Turkish Muslim cleric who lives in Pennsylvania who has been basically exiled from Turkey. He's a fierce opponent of the president of Turkey, Fethullah Gulen. So that the charter management organization is connected through a guy named Soner Tarim who runs this charter school association. And it's been accused of being a front for running money through to Gulen's religious operation, which, and this is not to be confused. I'm sure there will be, the president of Turkey often labels this guy as a terrorist. That's not the case. That's not what this is. He is a moderate Muslim. That's part of the reason why the president of Turkey opposes him, because the president of Turkey is a more fundamentalist Muslim. So there's a lot of this weird stuff, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it does not add up to what typically goes on in Alabama, which we know is...
Well, I mean, it's Susan, and it's not, we're not picking on them because he's Muslim or because he's Turkish or any of the other thing. We're not picking on him at all. There has been a long list of allegations against this charter school operated management organization, even in Texas, where they come from. And we're starting to hear complaints here in Alabama where they have contracts that federal contract or federal grants to the schools, state grants to the schools, money coming from public education will go to pay them first before any students or anything else happens.
Yeah, and in this situation, what you're talking about is that the administration gets paid first before expenses. Usually in a business, as business owners, you get paid last. So, and whatever your income, then your expenses, then your salaries. So, but what they're doing is they're just taking it right off the top. Say if they're getting 10% of $1 million, they're just taking $100,000 right off the top.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, it's a nice little business to be in because you're guaranteed your income whether the charter school succeeds or fails. Because you get all your money up front.
Exactly. Well, I'll say this, leave it to Republicans to want to pass a bill for charter schools and then they step off in it. That's what they want. And we do that look, I'm a Republican, I'm conservative. We frequently do things like this. Let's pass this, let's pass this. there's loopholes in there that shouldn't be in there. And, I don't really know the background of this guy, but obviously we don't need that money funneling over to an organization that promotes anything. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. And there could be more to the story. We don't know.
Well, I mean, it has nothing to do with him being a Muslim. It has to do with funneling money that should be going to education. I mean, like you said, there were accusations of misspent funds and discrimination and
no bid contracts that went to other Turkish outfits.
And once again, the think it through is busted on just about everything that we rush through.
That's what I was saying.
That's what I'm agreeing with you. We get in a hurry about one of these charges. Got to have them, and don't actually do the research to find out if we're working with the right organization.
When Josh talked to Mrs. Searcy about, who's over part of the lead program, she said, well, yeah, she talked to some folks in Texas about that group once. That's it.
One time.
A Google search brings you this. I want to move on because this may be some good news depending on how you look at it. In 2017, a law passed that allowed certain felons, Jonathan, to regain their voting rights. Now, a lot of these people don't even know they have them, but the Alabama Voting Rights Project is pushing to educate folks that have served their sentences and are back in society that they do have a right to vote. Now, certain felonies like murder, rape, all these things, you never get your voting rights back. But certain crimes, burglary, some marijuana issues, you can get them back. So it sounds like a good thing to me to allow more people to vote, but I'm not sure.
If people serve their time and they pay back to society for what they've done, I think it's great that they get their voting rights back because they're human, they're Americans, they're citizens, and just because you made a mistake, you could have been younger and made a horrible mistake, doesn't mean you'll make that mistake again. And to keep them down in society doesn't help them to grow as a person. To give them their rights back, to help them along, give them a fresh start. That's how you don't see people return.
Well, and this was passed by the Republican supermajority.
It was.
So it's obviously, that people are thinking this is the right thing.
We're not talking about 203 folks here. We're talking about 286,000 people in the state.
Wow.
That's a lot of votes right there for people who have, had, like you said, petty theft or, possession.
Just think of all the young guys who got arrested for carrying marijuana. I mean, that in Alabama could be a felony, and that could result in you losing your voting rights, and that's not fair. And that in Alabama, like you said, Republicans passed this, but this is something where Alabama's kind of leading the way. I mean, this happened a couple of years ago. Florida's followed suit and given rights back to some of their felons. So I think it's a good move.
All right. Well, that sounds like a positive thing for the state. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. Mike Hubbard asked for an appeal. Should he get it? We'll be right back.
Hey man, what are you doing today?
Playing the game. Thought I'd go out for a drive later maybe. Text some friends while I'm doing it. Scroll through social media. Kill a family 4 head-on collision.
Cool, man.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
A lot can change in 5 years, except those smile lines you treated with Bellafill. Because that's about how long Bellafill will keep them smooth and filled. 5 years. Now you can always look your best without all those injections, appointments, and costs. Bellafill is the only dermal filler that stimulates and maintains collagen growth long-term. Now time is on your side.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, the Supreme Court agreed to hear Mike Hubbard's appeal suspiciously. This week, his legal team filed a 72-page brief. Anything new?
Not that I can tell so far, but it looks like they're going to go back after the old arguments that they've been going at all the time about who's a principal. How did the jury apply the law? Was it too broad? It's the same old argument they've been making since the verdict.
I mean, to me, it seems like there's a setup here. I don't trust that this court is not going to do something nefarious because the court in Lee County, the judge, the jury found him guilty. The Court of Appeals found that there was a problem with one of the sentences or one of the convictions. So he's down to 11. I'm afraid that they're going to try to do something else here, Chip. I'm afraid there's something else nefarious because the opinion by the Court of Criminal Appeals was huge. It was 180-some pages. I mean, it was really thorough.
Try to read that in one night like I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing here. It's going to be extremely difficult to go back. I mean, there's preference that's given to what the jury said in a trial. And there's also preference to what lower court said. And in this case, I mean, the attorneys agree at trial what the law is going to say when they read it to the jury, how the law is going to be read to the jury. And that was the time to argue about how to present it to the jury. You can't, I don't think that you can go back and say they misapplied the law in that way. I guess you could. But I mean, I guess what they're going to do here is they're going to come and they're going to say those 4 counts that related to Craftmaster's printing or whatever, his printing business in Auburn, and they're going to say that the definition of a principal, which is somebody that hires a lobbyist, was too broad. And the Supreme Court may come back and say, yeah, it was, and we're going to strip out all of the teeth from that part of the law, which opens up this whole can of worms that we've been arguing about for years about what is a principal, what is a lobbyist. And by doing that, I mean, they really threaten to just take the whole rug out from under the ethics law.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, this guy was convicted 3 years ago. Do you think if you and I had been convicted on 12 felony crimes, we'd still be out of jail?
Absolutely not. Most everyone in this state would have already been serving their time. If they had appealed it to the appeals court and gotten denied, 99% would not make it to the Supreme Court. What they've done is they've allowed Mike Hubbard to keep his elite status by saying, I'm taking it all the way to the top. Where the average little man wouldn't be able to do that, couldn't afford to do that, and they wouldn't care enough to relook at his case. And I think how Mike Hubbard has been allowed to run free when there's other people who have been put in prison for much less, I just think it's really unfair.
I mean, this is just another example of somebody with money being able to drag out their court process.
Right. And I think it's not just one with money. I mean, I really hope that what the Supreme Court's intent here is to make sure that the people of Alabama see that they're doing their due diligence. Okay. But I can't help but think that there are 3 really large names with a lot of power tied to those counts that want their names disassociated with it.
And I think that's the problem here. Again, they didn't have to hear this. And I had at one point trusted that this court would do the right thing. I'm not sure that's true anymore. So, I mean, John, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, so for those that don't know, in the law, the way the law is written right now, a principal, somebody that hires a lobbyist who gives money to a politician, it's illegal for the legislator to take the money. It's also illegal for the principal to give the money.
Right.
And there were several people who were not indicted who gave money to Mike Hubbard on counts that he was found guilty on, that they, under the law, are also
This is about clearing the names of the wealthy people involved.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to name their names because I know one of them personally. But this is about clearing their names, keeping their status in this state, their wealthy status, and keeping them above everyone else. And it's really, honestly, it's not fair.
Well, the thing is, this is not a complicated one. Speaker of the House, Mac McCutcheon, said, oh, we got to concentrate on who a principal is. The Ethics Commission said, oh, we need to define who a principal is. It's real simple. The law says a principal is the head of a company that employs a lobbyist.
Right.
Real simple. I mean, most of these ethics laws that they claim are vague are so darn simple that a child could understand. It's like the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Ethics law. You shall not take money from a lobbyist more than $25. You know, these things are very simple. You cannot profit from your office.
Well, they don't read the bills, much less the Constitution or anything in the ethics laws or anything else like that. They just spout off whatever it is that today's words for, you know, what's a principal? What's a lobbyist?
They're coming.
They don't read it.
This next week, we believe they're coming with a new ethics reform package, Chip. And they're going to put on the mask and rob all the citizens right there, or under the, or you know, they're going to ride in with the horses, or they're going to do it in the stealth of night and just boo, screw, and tattoo everybody in the state.
Yeah, and I mean, this thing's going to be hundreds of pages, so there's going to be something in there that is not right. I mean, we looked at it last time. It wasn't that bad. They decided not to put it up during the legislative session that last year and take it before this commission that we might add has lobbyists on it, has people who are connected to a lot of these cases, and they're going to bring it back to the legislature this year and try to push it through. And
Jonathan, why are Republicans wanting to mess with the ethics laws that they passed in 2010 and championed?
I can tell you why. Because some of the top Republican donors are the ones involved in the Hubbard case, and they want to make it where they can fix it so that we can continue to take money from those top donors. It's all about money, money, money. And it's unfortunate that these people are elected to come work in our state and they're paid a salary to work for us. You know, if they didn't get state money, state cars, state salary, state office, you know, and they get a job elsewhere from someone, I can understand that. But it's just not right.
They're paid pretty darn good for a part-time job.
Yeah,
Susan,
they are.
50 grand a
about
year.
50 grand a year for working 3 months.
They got a 4% raise this year. Did you anybody here get a 4% raise?
No.
No.
Oh, well, our legislature did. But we're going to have to leave it right there. Very sad news earlier this week. Dimitri Polizzo, representative from the Montgomery area, passed away. He will be missed. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.